And today I will be speaking on direct-to-consumer or DTC genetic testing. We all know how technology has completely changed and redefined the late 20th and 21st centuries. One of the most popular of these technologies would be the cell phone. They provide excellent communication and a massive amount of information at the push of a few buttons. People have invested in phones so much that the net worth of Apple alone is $2 trillion as of August 2020. For a product to be invested in that much, there must be little to no downsides, right? Wrong. It is no doubt that phones are undeniably addictive, and they have been added to the list of addictions in the Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 5th edition. They have been known to increase rates of anxiety and depression. So why bring this up? Why talk about direct-to-consumer genetic testing when the main focus of tonight will be direct-to-consumer genetic testing? I bring this up because there's a comparison that can be made when looking at the two technologies. DTC genetic testing is in its beginning stages, just as phones once were. And right now, it is impossible to see all of the downsides when taking a genetic test. This is what I want to bring to everyone's attention tonight. Direct-to-consumer genetic testing companies should be more transparent when speaking of the negatives of taking a genetic test. So, on to my first argument of why DTC DNA tests are inaccurate. In 1953, Francis Crick and James Watson discovered the structure of DNA. It was found that DNA is extremely intricate, containing around 25,000 genes. And since then, the knowledge of DNA has greatly expanded. And in 1996, the first DNA company was able to start. Even though the knowledge of DNA has greatly expanded, the accuracy of DTC genetic testing companies should still be put into question. That first company to start was Ancestry. Over the span of 25 years, Ancestry has accumulated more than 15 million consumers. You would expect, with that many years of service and that many consumers, their product should be 100% accurate. However, this is not the case. Adam Rutherford, a geneticist and author from the University College of London, states that there are two questions we must ask ourselves when critiquing a direct-to-consumer genetic testing company. The first one is quite meticulous, but it asks if the testing has been done well, or if the raw analysis of the DNA has been done accurately. And the second asks how to interpret the DNA. While in most cases, the company does do the raw analysis of your DNA correctly, but there have been some bizarre cases of failure. In one case, it was found that when a DTC test was looking for a disease-related gene, there were 40% false positives. In other words, it said that the person contained the disease-related gene when they had neither the disease or the gene. That's insane. That's like taking a COVID test and flipping a coin to see if you have it or not. Even if the raw analysis of the DNA has been done correctly, problems can still arise. Companies look at the small areas of the DNA and not the big picture. So this brings us to how they would interpret the genes. But first, a little bit of Genetics 101. Genes are found in chromosomes, which are inside of our cells. And our genes are passed down from our parents, and that will determine our traits, which are things such as hair color, eye color, or your height. And the direct-to-consumer genetic testing company will look at your genes that have been passed down and compare them with other ethnicities from around the world. So back to interpretation. Rutherford himself was tested by two different DTC companies, and one said that he should have the gene for red hair, while the other one said that he didn't. This shows that because companies look at small areas of genes and not the entire DNA strand, that there's going to be disagreements. It's the same thing with eye color. It is perfectly possible to have two blue-eyed genes and not have blue eyes. Genetics is a probable science. As of right now, you cannot 100% accurately tell someone's heritage based off of their own DNA. So, on to DNA theft. People leave behind their DNA everywhere. Anything you touch, such as your glass or your toothbrush, and most people aren't aware of DNA theft as a problem. And the combination of two things creates a bigger problem when DNA theft occurs. With a quick search of the internet, it can be found that companies offer secret or discrete tests. The Government Accountability Office in 2010 reported that representatives of 2/15 of the tests that companies that it looked at suggested the use of non-consensual genetic testing. So you might be asking yourself, why would DNA theft occur? It occurs for three main reasons: celebrity DNA theft, blackmailers and nosy neighbors, and cheap and available technology. To sell newspapers and make headlines, people will engage in something called genetic trophy hunting, which is attempting to steal DNA from celebrities or public figures. And it is no surprise in this day and age that people will go to this extent to steal DNA from their favorite celebrity. In a widely publicized case in 2002, there was a plot to test and see if Prince Harry was really King Charles' son. The alleged plot involved a woman getting close enough to Prince Harry to pluck a few hairs from his head, analyze his DNA, and, if the results came back as they wanted, sell the results to make millions. The second reason of blackmailers and nosy neighbors. DNA often reveals secrets that people would want to keep hidden, such as a health condition or a true genetic relationship with their child. A blackmailer could steal someone's DNA and learn these secrets and, of course, blackmail them with them. In some extreme or rare cases, it is found that people have been able to take a DNA test and assume someone's genetic ID and deflect the police. Now, none of this would be a problem if it wasn't for the cheap and available technology. With the internet, DNA testing kits are more and more accessible. Testing is as easy as putting in your credit card information, buying the kit, receiving it, sending your kit back, and then waiting for your results. And as of today, kits can cost from as little as $30 to as much as $500. And as more and more people buy these kits, the opportunity for DNA theft grows.
The meeting between two brothers. A meeting neither of them thought they were ever going to have. Orange County Sheriff Sergeant David Stoll and Boynton Beach Police Officer Eric Reynolds went 50 years without knowing they were half-brothers.
I was big brother 50 years, and I lose the title without him doing any of the work.
Each of them had a DNA test through 23andMe. Stoll knew he was adopted and wanted to check on his health history.
I wanted to see, if I was going to go bald, or, what potential things were down the road for me.
He knew he might find some family, but didn't know he'd find a brother.
I was expecting to see cousins and stuff like that. Top of the list says half-brother. I'm like, I hadn't considered that possibility.
Stoll sent an email to Reynolds, and the two had an instant connection.
My wife is just always like, you texting your brother again? And of course, because we've got 50 years to make up for it.
For me, it's really cool. I got a big brother now. Never had a big brother. I think back, I wish I had a big brother at some moments in my life when I could have used one.
There is no denying the two are brothers. They share the same dad and each share a love for law enforcement.
From the age of 4, I knew I had to be a cop, so maybe this explains why.
Both are set to retire soon. Stoll has plans to meet the rest of the Reynolds family, including 3 more half-siblings.
My birthday was last month, and I figured this was probably the best present I could have gotten. So.
Yeah.
In Boynton Beach, I'm Miranda Christian, WPTV News Channel 5.
Companies often show happy stories about reuniting families such as this one, but they leave out the negative side. Imagine that you sign up to take a DNA test and you get your results back, but 1/2 of your entire family tree is messed up. And the main problem is, it says that your father is not your father. So you call customer support, but this time you find out that the company wasn't wrong, and your entire life gets rewritten until that point. This has happened to many people. A woman named Kathy found out that her father was not her real father, but by the time she found out, he had already passed on. She did everything she could to learn as much about him as possible, like where he lived or what his job was, but she says it was never enough. A man named Todd had a different problem. He found out that his grandmother wasn't his, and he struggled whether or not he should tell his mom. One of the most famous of these examples is Katherine St Claire. St Claire found out on Ancestry that her father was not her real father, and she says that it didn't erase her happy memories, but recast her entire life until that point. She says, "I looked into a mirror and started crying. I've taken for granted my whole life that what I was looking at in the mirror was part my mother and part my dad. And now that half of that person I was looking at in the mirror was gone, I didn't know who that was. St. Claire wanted to find other people like her, a support group, but she found none. So she started NPE, or Not Parent Expected, Friends. And the group now, today, has over 1,000 followers. And this is great, but that's also over 1,000 people whose life got completely changed because they were inadequately warned of the downsides of taking a genetic test. So what does the Bible have to say about this? It is no doubt that DNA is an incredible work of God, and it is a gift from Him to us. Psalm 139 says, "I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, I know that full well." Since DNA is a gift from God, we should be stewards of it and know what we're doing with it when we send it to a DTC genetic testing company. The Bible regards honesty as an important virtue. Deuteronomy 25:15 says, "You must have accurate and honest weights and measures, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you." While this verse is talking to the Israelites in the wilderness, it can be applied to modern day situations, specifically DTC genetic testing companies. And the final thing I want to ask you all is, when you're taking a genetic test, are you trying to find your source of validation from it? Or are you trying to let the stats tell you who you are? God saw all that He had made, and it was very good. When God created us, He saw us and knew that we were good. We don't need a DNA test to tell us that. The societal, scientific, and biblical perspectives all support more transparency when it comes to DTC genetic testing. Like all modern innovations, there are great positives from it, but also unintended consequences. Instead of going to extremes and suggesting we ban DTC testing or allow it to have zero regulation, the best thing we can do is use a good mix of information, regulation, and common sense to make sure that DTC genetic testing is used properly. If we do that, it will be a blessing for many years to come. Thank you.